Walk into a Chevrolet dealership right now, and you will find a gaping hole on the showroom floor where the Camaro used to sit. Walk into a Dodge dealer, and the legendary Hemi roar has been silenced, replaced by the digital hum of the Charger Daytona EV and the whir of inline sixes. The era of the Detroit muscle car rivalry is effectively over. But if you walk into a Ford dealership, the story is completely different. You can still buy a 5.0-liter naturally aspirated V8 with a manual transmission right off the lot. This creates a massive question. Why did Ford double down on a dying segment when their biggest rivals ran for the exits? The answer is not just stubbornness or nostalgia. It is a calculated financial monopoly. To understand this move, we have to look at the massive void the competition left behind. When General Motors pulled the plug on the Camaro and Stellantis killed the Hemi Challenger and Charger, they did not just exit a market segment, they handed Ford 100% market share of the naturally aspirated V8 coupe market on a silver platter. This is what business strategists call a last man standing strategy. By simply refusing to die, Ford has captured every remaining enthusiast buyer in the country. If you want a brand new rear-wheel drive American coupe with 8 cylinders and a stick shift, you have exactly one option. You are buying a Mustang. Ford saw the writing on the wall, but they read it differently than everyone else. While Dodge pivoted to what they call e-muscle, betting the farm that enthusiasts would embrace fake exhaust noises and battery packs, Ford looked at the sales data. They realized that while the total market for muscle cars was shrinking, the share available to the last survivor was massive. It is better to have 100% of a shrinking pie than 30% of a pie that does not exist anymore. We actually have concrete proof that this was a long-term industrial strategy, not just a fluke. During the chaotic UAW negotiations in late 2023, a critical detail emerged that most mainstream news outlets missed. The final contract between Ford and the United Auto Workers explicitly guarantees Coyote V8 engine production at the Windsor engine plant through 2028. Think about the weight of that commitment. In an era where every manufacturer is promising a full transition to electric vehicles by 2030, Ford signed a legally binding labor agreement to keep building the Coyote V8 for at least 5 more years. This was not an accident. It was a negotiated industrial pillar. This context changes how you look at the S650 generation Mustang. When it launched, some critics called it a heavy refresh of the previous S550 rather than a revolutionary new car. And honestly, they were right. But that was the point. Ford did not need to spend billions reinventing the wheel. They needed to refine the chassis, update the interior to keep it modern, and most importantly, keep the V8 emissions compliant. By reusing the hard points of the previous chassis, they kept development costs low enough to make the business case work. They did not need to beat a non-existent Camaro Z28, they just needed to be available. It is a gamble on the consumer psyche. Ford is betting that the visceral connection to a mechanical engine, the vibration, the sound, the smell of gasoline, is something that a significant portion of the market is not ready to give up. Before we move on to how this strategy plays out globally, I want to hear from you. Ideally, drop a comment below. Would you actually buy the new electric Dodge Charger, or is the V8 a non-negotiable requirement for a muscle car in your garage? Let us know. Capturing the United States market was only half the equation. To make the numbers work, Ford had to look beyond Detroit. The Mustang has evolved into something much more valuable than just a sports car. It is Ford's only true global passenger car icon. Think about Ford's current lineup in the United States. It is almost entirely trucks, SUVs, and vans. The Fiesta is gone. The Focus is gone. The Fusion is gone. Without the Mustang, Ford risks becoming viewed purely as a utility company. a manufacturer of appliances for hauling lumber and groceries. The Mustang is the brand halo. It creates the excitement and the emotional connection that gets people into the dealership. You might come in to look at the Mustang you saw in a movie, but you leave with an Explorer ST for the family. That cool factor has a tangible dollar value attached to it. This is even more critical overseas. In markets like Europe, Australia, and China, the Mustang is the best-selling sports car, period. It outsells Porsches and Jaguars in their home territories. Why? Because it represents a slice of the American dream that you can actually own. In Germany, a V8 Mustang is an exotic rebel compared to the precise, quiet luxury of a BMW or Audi. In Australia, after the death of the locally made Holden Commodore and Ford Falcon 5.8s, the Mustang became the refuge for an entire continent of V8 lovers. The financial logic here relies on the profit per unit metric. Selling a base model EcoBoost Mustang keeps volume high and the factory lights on, but the real money is in the upper trims. The margins on a Dark Horse or a GT Premium are significantly higher than on a base model. By creating these specialized, high-performance trims, Ford can extract massive value from a relatively old platform. They are selling a lifestyle and a legacy, not just horsepower figures. Furthermore, the global demand for American culture remains at an all-time high, even as regulations tighten. European emission standards are incredibly strict, yet Ford engineers found a way to keep the Coyote V8 legal in the EU. They would not have spent that engineering budget if the returns were not there. They know that in a sea of gray, regulatory-compliant crossovers, a bright red V8 coupe commands a premium. It differentiates Ford from the dozens of Chinese electric vehicle startups flooding the market. Anyone can build a battery on wheels. Only Ford can build a Mustang. This global presence creates a safety net. If US sales dip, strong demand in the Middle East or Australia can balance the ledger. It diversifies the risk of keeping the V8 alive. But marketing and global sales are one thing. You still need the engineering prowess to back it up. You can't just sell nostalgia forever. Eventually, you have to prove that your old-school technology can still compete with the cutting edge. If you are enjoying this deep dive into the business of speed, make sure to hit that subscribe button. We break down the automotive industry stories that no one else is talking about. Now, marketing is great, but Ford knew they needed to do something radical to prove the V8 wasn't just a relic. They needed to turn the Mustang into a supercar killer. Enter the Mustang GTD. This machine is the ultimate proof of Ford's seriousness. It is not just a body kit on a rental car chassis. It is a $300,000 declaration of war on the European establishment. To truly understand the lengths Ford is going to, you have to look at the manufacturing process. It starts life as a standard Mustang body shell at the Flat Rock Assembly Plant in Michigan. Then it gets shipped to Multimatic in Canada, the same engineering wizards who built the Le Mans winning Ford GT. What happens next is absolute mechanical insanity. They literally take a plasma cutter to the rear end of the car. They hack out the trunk floor and the rear frame rails to install a transaxle gearbox, moving the transmission to the back axle. This effectively turns the Mustang into a front mid-engine car. It is an engineering nightmare, but a performance dream. This shifts the weight balance to a near-perfect 50-50 split. You do not do that for a marketing stunt. You do not plasma cut a production chassis for nostalgia. You do that when you want to hunt down a Porsche 911 GT3 RS on the Nürburgring. This moves the Mustang out of the traditional muscle car bracket entirely and pushes it deep into supercar killer territory. It validates the entire S650 platform. It proves that the bones of this car are strong enough to handle 800 horsepower and active aerodynamics. And this is where the racing program becomes critical. While Dodge is struggling to figure out how to make an electric Charger exciting on a racetrack, and Chevrolet has effectively retired the Camaro from competition, Ford is fielding Mustang GT3 cars and GT4 cars all over the world. The technology transfer is tangible. The cooling systems, the suspension geometry, the aerodynamic profiles, they all trickle down from the race cars to the street cars you can actually buy. The Dark Horse is not just a cool name, it is the direct beneficiary of millions of dollars in track development. There is also a massive cultural aspect here. Ford is using the V8 to dominate motorsports at a time when others are retreating. While the competition is busy building skateboards for batteries, Ford is refining the art of the internal combustion engine. There is a visceral, emotional connection to a high-revving V8 that simply cannot be replicated by software or synthesizers. The vibration through the shifter, the mechanical feedback of a limited-slip differential, the rising scream of an engine approaching 7,500 RPM, these are the tangible elements that make enthusiasts open their wallets. An electric motor provides instant torque, sure, but it provides zero drama. Ford understands that drama sells cars. The GTD exists to remind the world that internal combustion is not old technology. It is the pinnacle of driver engagement. By keeping the V8 alive, Ford retains the soul of the machine while everyone else is trying to simulate it with speakers. So what does this actually mean for the future of the Roar? It comes down to three distinct pillars: a total market monopoly here in the United States, a massive global brand presence that helps sell trucks, and undeniable engineering excellence that rivals supercars. The V8 Mustang is not dying. It is simply evolving into a more exclusive premium product. Ford did not save the V8 just to be nice to enthusiasts. They saved it because it prints money and builds a legacy that an electric appliance never could. If you are glad the V8 is still here, hit that like button. And if you want to know the SUV Toyota is scared of, watch this video next.